What's up, everybody? Big Cobb Diesel coming at you. And I wanted to do a reaction video about the prisoner who was killed over in New York. And I was going to spend a little more time doing a little more research, but I want to get this video out because we have a lot of other, I hate to say, bigger issues that are affecting us as a country right now with the terrorist attacks, the apparent terrorist attacks that are occurring. So I wanted to get this video out, my reaction out, before this other stuff takes over, because I got the feeling that the other thing is going to get much larger and much worse before it's over. Okay, here we go. For those of you that may or may not know, I am a former corrections officer. I was a corrections officer with the state of Michigan for 12 years, and during that time I've worked every security level that the state of Michigan has. And when I watched the video of the young man who was beaten and who subsequently died, obviously that video was hard to watch. And my thoughts and prayers go out to his family. Let's get something straight real quick. Yes, he was a convicted felon. I believe that he was in for maybe assaulting his girlfriend or something to that effect. I think he was doing 12 years or something like that. So this is not to lessen that. I don't want anybody to be a victim of a crime. Nobody deserves to be a victim of a crime. So I'm not trying to diminish what happened to his victim or victims at his hands prior to him going to prison. There's no excuse for that. But the prison sentence itself is the punishment for the crime. As corrections professionals, it's not our job to punish prisoners. That's what the court does, right? The judge punished the prisoner by sending him to prison. As correctional staff, our job is to protect the public, and the way that we protect the public is by making sure that the prisoners stay in our custody for the time that has been put out by the court. So whatever time the judge dictated that somebody is to be in prison, our job as correctional staff is to ensure that we maintain custody and security of that prisoner for that time. Now, inside of that, once somebody is inside of our custody, inside one of our facilities and in our custody, the way that we maintain the good order and security of the facility is by certain rules and regulations, standard operating procedures, post orders, etc. And this is very simple. We don't allow prisoners to beat each other up. We don't allow prisoners to victimize other prisoners. We don't allow prisoners to assault staff. These are all things that we do to maintain the good order and security of the institution. Now, if a prisoner violates those rules, then there of course are consequences, and the consequences could range from something as simple as a verbal warning: hey man, don't do that again, you're not supposed to be on that side of the yellow line, or whatever they're doing that's minor. You can say, hey, don't do that, all the way up to and including using deadly force. Just like on the outside, if a prisoner is using deadly force against someone, well, we of course can use deadly force to stop that deadly force assault. Okay, and depending on what state you're in, you can even use deadly force to stop a prisoner from escaping. So you've got verbal warnings and you've got deadly force. You got a whole lot of options in between there. Now, I don't know why the prisoner was in medical, which is where he was at in the video. I thought I heard in the beginning that maybe they suspected him of having a controlled substance or contraband drugs, that he may have tried to swallow them. I don't know if that's still the case. You got to remember, when these stories are coming out, the information is coming out fast and furious, and you can only take it with a grain of salt until these things are confirmed, because things can change. But I thought I saw somewhere that he might have been trying to swallow what might have been drugs. And we'll find out. I do have to say, from my experience, if that is the case, if a prisoner is going to swallow drugs, they're really taking their life into their own hands without anybody touching them, especially if it's a drug like cocaine. They typically will package these drugs in plastic baggies, or they'll take the fingers off of like a food service plastic glove and tie it into knots, or they will, they'll get plastic from somewhere and then kind of shrink wrap it. But I got to tell you, if that goes down into their system, if they swallow that and whatever that thing is that's surrounding those drugs breaks, they're probably not going to make it. It'll kill them. But the other thing we can do is, if we suspect that somebody has swallowed contraband, specifically drugs, we can put them in what's known as a dry cell and just wait for them to pass it. They have two choices. Once they pass it, we're going to get it. Well, not us, but the medical staff. That's what they get paid for. But we're going to get it, and we're going to go through the stool sample, and we're going to get the drugs out. Or they can swallow the drugs again with their own poop on it and keep doing that. But even then, eventually, that's only going to last so long. So if that was the incident, if that was the reason why we saw what we saw, it's just completely ridiculous of what happened. Now, there are a ton of reasons that this guy became the object of their attention. We only know that he was in medical. We don't know why he went to medical. I can also tell you that if we conduct a cell rush on a prisoner, meaning the prisoner, for whatever reason, we need to extract that prisoner from the cell, either because we're moving them or we feel that they may be a harm to themselves. Maybe they have a homemade weapon in there that we need to get, or whatever. When we do a cell extraction or a cell rush on a prisoner, you got to remember, there's going to be 4 or 5, usually large guys, who are dressed in body armor, and their job is to go in and secure that prisoner. Usually what happens, because that is a use of force incident, and there is a high probability of injury to both the prisoner and to the staff members. Once we do a cell rush on a prisoner, that prisoner, I'm speaking Michigan, guys, I would assume it's the same all over the country, but I can't say that for sure. I don't know in New York, but in Michigan for sure, once we do a cell rush on a guy, that prisoner has to be evaluated by healthcare staff just for that reason. That way, if the prisoner is injured, it can be documented, and it usually happens. I mean, think about it. You got 4 or 5 guys, so you got about 1,000 pounds of beef hitting this prisoner like a locomotive with a shield to place him on the deck so he can be restrained. And usually what will happen is the prisoners usually won't just go. They're usually fighting, and as anybody knows, in any kind of a fight, injuries are going to occur. So prisoners evaluated. If need be, the prisoner would be sent to the infirmary, which it looks like that's where this prisoner was. And then if need be, the medical staff will determine if the prisoner's good to go. They'll kind of bandage him up and send him back to his cell. Or if he needs health care outside the scope of the prison, then we prepare to ride the prisoner out on a hospital run. So we don't know why the prisoner was in health care. Was he there for something, a medical procedure to begin with, and something happened? A lot of times I have to wonder, and I'm only speculating. I have not heard anything on this, guys. This is Aaron Cobb speculating from my years of experience in the DOC. Could this be the result of a prisoner perhaps harassing a female staff member? The reason why I say that is just because the brutality of this beating, and these guys were taking turns on this guy. It wasn't the result of trying to get a prisoner in restraints. And I want to go off on that tangent for a second. The use of force policy is very clear in the state of Michigan when we can use force and how much force we can use. There's literally a visual representation that is given to every law enforcement officer and corrections officer in the state of Michigan. We're trained on it. Now, with what happened with this prisoner, they've far exceeded that. Okay, if I have to get a prisoner on restraints, if the prisoner's fighting, the prisoner's assaulted somebody, or maybe the prisoner hasn't even done anything violent, but we're told, hey, go get that guy, cuff him up, and take him to the hole. Well, if that guy decides that he doesn't want to go to the hole, now we're fighting. So the use of force policy allows me to use pretty much as much force as necessary to get that prisoner in cuffs. It's pretty much, barring deadly force, I can pretty much do whatever I need to do to get a prisoner in restraints. The only thing that we can't do in the state of Michigan is nothing around the neck. No Valsalva maneuvers, no choke holds, nothing around the neck. But other than that, we can do pretty much what we need to do to get a prisoner in restraints. But here's the caveat to that, is once that prisoner's in restraints, once we have him in handcuffs, it's over. We have to treat that prisoner like a newborn baby, because the prisoner, for all intents and purposes, is incapacitated, meaning the prisoner cannot defend himself. So once you get that prisoner in handcuffs, there's nothing. All you're doing at this point is transporting the prisoner from point A to point B, and then that's the end of it. You know, if you punch a prisoner once they're in restraint, I mean, what was told to me when I was a new officer in the DOC is that if the prisoner so much as gets a paper cut after you've restrained them, it's on you. Okay, so obviously, again, looking at this video, these corrections officers went way above and beyond the pale of any formal and normally accepted use of force. So what caused it? Were they retaliating? Did the prisoner just call somebody a name? Maybe the prisoner, and again, this doesn't excuse what happened, but maybe the prisoner assaulted a corrections officer. Maybe that's what happened. The prisoner was restrained as a result of that assaulting of a corrections officer or other staff member. And it was, again, like I mentioned before, once use of force is used, you got to go to the infirmary and get evaluated. So who knows? The facts are going to come out, but also knowing how the DOC works, it may be a while before we get all of the facts, and we may not get all of the facts until there's freedom of information procedures done, or these guys go to court. I'm calling that all these guys are going to get fired. Some are going to go to prison. Some are going to get slapped on the wrist. But I can't see any of them walking away from this situation unscathed. In the video, you have corrections officers who aren't actively beating the prisoner, but they're just standing there. I also thought I heard that there may have even been a supervisor or two that were there as well. I got to go back and look at the video to see that. Usually, and not in Michigan, but in a lot of other states, supervisors wear a different color shirt, so it's easy to determine who they are in a crowd. So I'm gonna go back and look at that video to see if I can determine who the supervisors were. But those who stood around, even though they didn't throw any punches, they didn't do anything, they are complicit. So they are no better than the ones who are throwing the punches. So my prediction is that everybody gets fired. The main antagonists, the ones who are actually physically assaulting the prisoner, are going to go to prison, and some other lesser type of discipline is going to occur for those that stood around and watched. And I would imagine some firings, some suspensions, some demotions. I would be shocked if anybody involved is able to maintain their job in any sense. But that's my take on it, guys. Like I said, 12 years corrections. Let me know what your thoughts. Did I miss anything? And if you happen to be watching this from another state, let me know what your state's policies are on use of force. I can't imagine there's going to be anybody that chimes in and says, oh yeah, that's completely justified and we would have done that, unless you work at a gulag somewhere. All right, everybody, stay safe out there and we'll talk soon. Peace.